the globe. This week, in focus. This is Focus Earth with Bob Woodruff.
Hi, I'm Bob Woodruff, and welcome to Focus Earth. Here in the nation's capital, federal law enforcement agencies are sounding the alarm of what they call the #1 homegrown threat to our country. It's a growing threat from a faction of citizens who claim we are not taking the warnings of environmentalists and scientists seriously, and therefore not acting swiftly enough to save our planet. They believe actions, illegal ones, violent ones, speak louder than words. And now they've drawn the full attention of the FBI, earning the title eco-terrorists. It's the #1 domestic terror threat. Extremists with no respect for the law.
These are people who believe that nature has at least the same rights that human beings do. They want change right away.
In pursuit of that change, they've caused more than $150 million in damages in the U.S., targeting businesses, universities, and people they believe are harming animals and the earth.
By operating as small autonomous cells, they're able to maintain operational security.
An underground network with no clear structure that has evaded the FBI for years. To understand how this could be, we travel to the Pacific Northwest, the birthplace of environmental activism. It's here, with the majestic mountains, pristine forests, and ocean vistas, that the movement first began peacefully.
I'm not going to let him cut it down.
For decades, activists tried to protect the natural world, but frustrated by lack of progress, the environmental movement began to get more extreme. In the late 1990s, the Earth Liberation Front, known as ELF, and its sister organization, the Animal Liberation Front, known as ALF, emerged with a, quote, burning rage of a dying planet. Their strategy? Get to the source of the problem and get violent if necessary.
They realize that, whether you're talking about the timber industry or you're talking about building an apartment complex or you're talking about research, you're talking about money. And so is attacking the finances gets the people's attention.
It was about this time that Craig Rosebrough, a political activist who lived in the Portland area, was contacted by the ELF and ALF to be their spokesperson.
I received a telephone call saying in a disguised voice, check your mailbox. And so one of my roommates went down, and sure enough, there was a note in the mailbox.
That note was from the ALF, claiming responsibility for an attack on a local lynx farm, where cats were raised and then put to death for their fur.
Subsequently held a news conference the next day downtown, and that was really the beginning of my work as a spokesperson for both groups.
Rosebrough was never a member of ELF or ALF, but agreed to become their spokesperson because he sympathized with their cause. For years, Rosebrough received anonymous notes claiming responsibility for ELF and ALF actions.
I honestly did not know who was behind them, who was sending them.
It was his job to publicize those events and to encourage others to join the fight.
Take initiative, form your own cell, and do what needs to be done to protect all life on this planet.
The guidelines of the Earth Liberation Front were first is to cause maximum economic damage to entities that are profiting off the destruction of the natural environment. The second was to educate and reveal the atrocities committed against the natural environment to the public and the media. And the third, and perhaps the most important, is to take all necessary precautions against harming life.
They burned SUV dealerships and bombed universities pioneering genetically engineered crops. They accused them of perverting nature for economic gain. But it was an act of environmental sabotage in 1998 that put eco-terrorism on the map. Early in the game, eco-terrorists weren't taken very seriously. It was hard for anyone, in particular U.S. law enforcement, to imagine that so-called tree huggers could turn so violent. But all of that changed one October night in Vail, Colorado. October 19th, 1998. Under the cloak of darkness, ELF members climbed up a mountain and set fire to a ski resort in Vail, Colorado. damaging 3 buildings and 4 ski lifts.
I was shocked to see it. I mean, that was definitely a rise in the level of intensity.
The ELF said they were trying to stop the ski resort from expanding into the habitat of the already endangered lynx. But they didn't succeed. Though Vail suffered millions in damages, they rebuilt. And it was a turning point for law enforcement.
Prior to that time, there had been a number of fires that we thought were somehow connected, and there was a lot of similarities in the techniques and the devices that were used.
With numerous arsons trailing across the West Coast, law enforcement began to make a connection.
They were able to develop an insider, somebody who was involved in many of the arsons, who decided to cooperate.
Now, with someone on the inside of ELF and ALF to guide them to other members, a multi-organization effort led by the FBI formed a sting known as Operation Backfire to link numerous suspects under one conspiracy.
We formed a huge task force, 40 or so agents and police officers.
Their informant wore a body wire and helped them learn about a terrorist cell that called itself the Family.
They would divide into smaller groups, oftentimes only 3 or 4 or 5 individuals that would go out and take some sort of action, either starting a fire or initiating an incendiary device.
From 1996 to 2001, the Family carried out 46 arsons in the name of the Earth Liberation Front and the Animal Liberation Front and caused $48 million in damage.
They come from either wealthy backgrounds, middle class, or not. They start out, performing perfectly legal exercises of their First Amendment rights, protesting and what have you, not doing anything against the law, and then they evolve from that into much more radical individuals.
The investigation also shed light on how ELF and ALF operated. Are they organized at all like some of the other groups that we know a lot about, like Al-Qaeda and others?
Well, not to that degree. I mean, what you'll see with the animal rights movement and the environmental extremist movement is that they will have a formalized hierarchy as it comes to the public face, where they have the national press offices and their websites. But then the operational arm, if you will, is much more autonomous, involved with small numbers of individuals who really avoid communication.
In December of 2005, 14 members of the Family were indicted for federal arson and conspiracy.
10 of the defendants pled guilty and are serving federal prison sentences at this time. 3 of them are international fugitives. There's another international fugitive out of Seattle. And one of the defendants committed suicide while in custody.
After Operation Backfire, it seemed the arsons were subsiding.
We have to assume that there was a deterrent effect because there was a rapid decrease in activity in the Northwest.
I would imagine that yes, the law enforcement crackdown has had a significant role in discouraging people from becoming involved in that type of activity.
But in recent years, new cells of eco-extremists have been stepping up their tactics once more. In April, the FBI put animal rights extremist Daniel San Diego on their most wanted terrorist list for bombing 2 San Francisco buildings connected to animal testing. It is the first time an eco-terrorist has made the country's most infamous crime list.
Not only did he set off an incendiary device, but he also had a secondary device at both places which contained shrapnel, which we believe were intended for first responders.
And now FBI agents worry that it's only a matter of time before a victim is caught in the crossfire of the eco-terrorist cause.
We're just fortunate that no one's been hurt yet.
But as we'll find out next, the battle is becoming personal as eco-saboteurs focused on saving animals take domestic terrorism to a dangerous new level.